Welcome to this Access PeopleXD Evo webinar, Strategic Compensation Management, Turning Pay Complexity into Business Alignment. I'm Emma Parkin, Head of Propositions here at Access. And whether you're struggling with time-consuming salary planning processes that don't align with business goals, facing pay transparency pressures while managing complex compensation structures, or need to demonstrate clear business impact from your compensation investments, today's session will provide strategic insights to help you transform your approach. In the next 25 minutes, we'll examine the compensation realities facing UK organisations today, explore how strategic compensation management is delivering measurable business improvements, and see firsthand how Access PeopleXD Evo's Pay Planner can help you turn pay complexity into competitive advantage through intelligent automation and business alignment. So let's get started. Let's start with the compensation reality facing every mid-large organisation today. We're seeing a perfect storm of challenges that's making traditional pay planning approaches unsustainable. First, the transparency gap. Only 41% of UK employers share pay ranges in job adverts, despite growing employee demand for transparency. This creates immediate tension. Employees want visibility, but most organisations aren't equipped to provide it confidently. Second, the budget squeeze. 48% of UK organisations reported lower salary increase budgets for 2024, with projected increases of just 3.9% for 2025. Yet compensation remains your biggest lever for talent retention and performance. Thirdly, the confidence crisis. Here's what's really striking. 73% of leaders aren't confident in their manager's ability to have constructed conversations about pay with employees. This means your frontline leaders, who should be your strongest advocates for your compensation strategy, feel unprepared and unsupported. But here's the insight that changes everything. Only 32% of employees believe their pay is fair, yet research shows that pay process fairness is 5.4 times more impactful on employee satisfaction than the actual compensation amount itself. This means how you manage compensation technically matters more than what you pay. The cost of getting this wrong is enormous. Companies with 10,000 employees can spend £35 million annually just on review processes. That's significant investment in administrative complexity rather than strategic value. And let's not forget the EU Pay Transparency Directive requires disclosure by June 2026. And while the UK isn't directly affected, global organisations are adopting consistent transparency standards. The question isn't whether you need better compensation management, it's whether you're going to address these challenges strategically or continue managing them reactively with spreadsheets and hope. So how are organisations managing these compensation pressures? Unfortunately, most are trapped in manual, complex processes that create more problems than they solve. Manual salary planning processes are taking weeks of valuable time, creating significant risk for errors, and lack integration with performance data. HR teams are building complex spreadsheets, chasing managers for input, and trying to balance budgets without real-time visibility into business impact. As we hear from reward managers, the process becomes an administrative burden prone to mistakes rather than a strategic tool. According to CIPD research, pay equity analysis is often limited to gender gaps, with only 32% of organisations conducting equal pay audits. This means potential inequalities across ethnicity, age, or other factors remain unidentified, creating significant legal and reputation risks. There's a fundamental disconnect between pay strategy and performance management. Organisations are making compensation decisions in isolation from performance data and retention priorities. When you can't model what-if scenarios, like budget changes or new reward schemes, you lose the ability to reward your best performers strategically. Managers lack confidence and tools for effective compensation conversations, creating suspicion rather than trust. They find pay conversations tricky to navigate and wish they had access to more information. Without proper frameworks, this leads to inconsistent messaging and damaged relationships. The result? Organisations are just surviving pay planning instead of mastering it. Instead of proactively using compensation to drive business outcomes, they're constantly firefighting, responding to salary demands, counter-offers, and equity complaints after problems have already emerged. But here's where the transformation opportunity becomes compelling. When organisations implement strategic compensation management with the right technology, the business impact is remarkable. This delivers measurable return on investment through targeted pay decisions that focus budget where it will have the greatest retention and performance impact. Automated pay planning can reduce process time by up to 75% while improving decision quality. Instead of weeks of manual spreadsheet work, intelligent planning tools can analyse performance data and budget constraints to provide recommended pay decisions in minutes. The pay transparency impact is particularly powerful. Organisations with transparent pay practices report significantly lower gender pay gaps compared to non-transparent organisations. This isn't just about compliance, it's about creating fair, defensible compensation structures that build employee trust and reduce legal risk. Modern compensation platforms enable real-time tracking for budget and business impact correlation. You can model what-if scenarios, budget changes, new reward schemes, and see the impact before you commit. This transforms compensation from a cost centre into a strategic investment where you can measure returns and link pay decisions directly to performance data and business priorities. Integrated communication workflows build manager confidence and employee trust in compensation decisions. Managers get the data and talking points they need for effective conversations, while employees receive clear, consistent messaging about how their compensation was determined. The result? Organisations move from surviving pay planning to mastering it, from reactive firefighting to proactive strategic advantage, where every compensation decision drives business performance. I'd now like to welcome Josh Morris, Solutions Consultant at Access, who works with organisations daily to transform compensation management from an administrative burden into a strategic business advantage. Over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Emma. So we're going to look at strategic pay planning within the PeopleXD Pay Planner module. Looking into the directly integrated Pay Planner module within PeopleXD, all of the data seamlessly flows from PeopleXD. So looking at all the history, the previous salary information, employee records, pay planning cycles that seem to take weeks and months now take typically 10 minutes. So what you see in here is the direct data flow. There's no Excel required in here, there's no Excel processes, and because of Pay Planner being part of PeopleXD, this eliminates data risk entirely as everything stays within the secure solution. We can start to look at the different areas, the different job names, the hourly rate, as well as base pay and wage type in the test cycle pay planning process. We can see the different budgeted areas, we can see the optional data that we can include. We can also see that job name cycling through from PeopleXD. Here we have those new cycle details. So here we can start to see the salary and bonus modelling areas. We can see the available date that we can typically select around pay date or base pay. We can also see if it's a uniform budget and select the different eligibility rules and criterias. We can select a total budget and also a holdback amount, giving us a total visibility of that working budget. In here, we can then go back into the salary and area and look at those task statuses. So rather than having to export on Excel sheets, look at the different details and data around those cycles. It's all within the PeopleXD Pay Planner module. Moving through the different cycles, you've got that flexibility and you're able to test and run through multiple cycles with multiple dates with that eligibility criteria included. We can see different budgets for different cycles, or you can run a single budget, again, reflecting your current and future processes around the pay planning cycle. We can see the different statuses, whether they're on track, overdue, due soon, or closed for that specific period. You'll see the owner there of the HR administrator and the last updates made in the solution. You're also able to create a new cycle on screen, as well as seeing those specific owners of those cycles. If we open up that cycle details screen here, we can see those different areas. So we talked about it being base pay and bonus, or just base pay in here with those pay effective dates. We can then edit the details as we go with different areas to flag where something is required in the solution. We can see and save away that specific pay date, again streamlining the process rather than having to keep editing and creating multiple different Excel spreadsheets. We can also see any deviations from managers against that set percentage, requires justifications as well as pay letters. So thinking about Emma's statistics and managers not being confident around having those conversations with employees, we also have the ability to explain and include those pay letters with those eligibility rules across the organisation. Looking at browsing all the different areas and all the different rules that we have in play here, we can look at things like annual base range, the pay ranges and the monthly hours or age ranges. Again, giving you that flexibility to include or exclude certain areas, certain departments or certain individuals here by adding certain locations. It'll then on the right hand side give you that summary of how many individual employees are eligible for that certain cycle. You've also got the ability to add supporting users and save that criteria with, again, reminding you that any deviations from that set percentage have to be justified by users. Going back to the budget information on the right hand side, we can see we have that base pay and bonus area with those working budgets. Now, anytime you'll notice as we go through the demonstration that we're editing or changing the working budgets or giving increases or decreases in certain areas, that'll continuously update our working budget. You have one total there on the right hand side to look at that budget and whether that is flexible, whether you want to hold back any of those specific amounts. Moving through the base pay area, you can see a certain percentage of 5% there on screen. It's then including the certain areas. Again, updating these figures on screen will update the working budgets on the right hand side with that holdback and total budget and those base or areas and periods included. You've then got the 10 locations that we've selected that are eligible for this pay cycle. You've also then got that timeline of when these different areas need to be complete by. Again, giving managers accountability that they need to update steps, they need to action certain areas. You can create those different steps within the cycle, again, alleviating the stress of exporting and getting them done for the correct time. We've got the different times there that we can allocate for review, completion, and we have different pay philosophies as well. So again, setting up the pay philosophy within the solution, again, with it being focused and directly integrated to the PeopleXD solution, we can increase for all, we can increase certain areas based on performance. We can again look at those pay philosophies within the solution based on the rest of the organisation and those high performers again, so that pay is fair across the organisation based on these factors and the eligibility criteria. You can also select that mandatory minimum increase. So again, giving all of the employees a specific increase with those different justifications and bringing in some of those eligibility criteria. You've also got that bonus information as well. So is it a flat rate that's being applied? Are we looking at some kind of bonus matrix as well based on that performance that I talked about across the organisation? You're also able to select from these pay philosophy templates as well as create your own, or you can have a custom approach there on screen. Again, viewing those different pay philosophies, you can decide which attributes it's going to be looking at, whether it's talent, performance ratings across the organisation, and you can see there on the right hand side, it's continuously updating our allocated budgets, our employees that are included or excluded, and again, the different performance ratings within the screens, so that those high performers are being paid fairly, but also it's standardised across the organisation. Again, we're not editing multiple different Excel formats, importing, exporting and locking down the requirements. It's all seamlessly integrated into the PeopleXD Evo solution. We can also then increase across the board. So if you wanted to increase across a specific location, we can see based on those performance ratings and who's ineligible and eligible, what that is doing to the working budget and the allocated budget. Again, with having that holdback that you can utilise as well. Clear visibility and understanding across that pay cycle. You then go into the summary and review screen, so then you can increase and look at the different areas of bonuses, base pay, looking at the different areas and those modifiers. We then look at Leonie here, the warehouse assistant, look at those different pay areas, and we can save away those pay philosophies. We then can look at different assignments across the different teams, so you can include supporting users. Again, approaching this alongside managers where they might need to use some guidance or advice. Again, speeding up that process from weeks to minutes in the system. Everyone is accountable for those deviations and those bonus increases or flat rate increases. Again, we're selecting the different supporting users to assist that manager with any queries they may have. You can then give and start that allocation across the organisation. Again, keeping the infographics and the information on screen here and the accountability for those users and managers across the team. They can see their immediate tasks, their direct reporting tasks, and who they need to complete in terms of their team information. We can see the increase percentage on screen here for Jason. We can then see any increases, deviations, and the progress chart there on the right hand side, completing that task. You'll now see it's asked for a mandatory comment around the deviation and the justification around that deviation. Saving that away as a manager or a user completes that task and that justification, giving them that accountability that these are being completed on time, on track, so you have that seamless pay planning process. If we look at the breakdown in pay on the screen here, again, thinking about those conversations with managers and employees and how it's difficult across the different industries, here we can clearly see the breakdown of the reasons and justifications for those different bonus or increases based on those performance levels, and then we can clearly submit for that review. That can then go to that reviewer or head of that pay planning process. Again, as that pay planning process head of has full visibility of the different cycles, the different areas and checklist or tasks to complete, we can then go in and see the other areas of the organisation, the managers that are yet to complete some tasks with some highlights and key areas to focus on. You can see some of the deviations and how they've got to the different base pay ranges and the adjustments. Again, full visibility for those administrators that are taking control of the pay planning process. All of the updates, all of the tasks are completed, created within the solution, and then you can start to review and complete that pay planning process. Looking at some of the different adjustments, you can start to look at equity in pay. You can see the different teams, the different assignments to those different managers, and of course those deviations and tasks to complete, all on the right hand side whilst having that total allocated amount or budget. You can then see those key highlights, and then you can start that review to complete those allocations for those managers. Again, speeding up that full pay planning process and cycle across the organisation from weeks to minutes. If you'd like to find out more about the pay planning strategic process in PeopleXD, please reach out to the team. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today. I really hope you've picked up some useful insights and can see how what we've shown you today can help tackle the challenges you're facing. If what you've seen resonates with you, why not take a look at how Access PeopleXD Evo could work for your organisation? You'll find all the details on our website, and you could book a demo that's tailored just to you. We'll pop that link up on the screen now. Thanks again, and have a great day.